right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Startup Fuck Up. Today, we have Irina, who is the founder of TrackMage from us, joining us. And she has built a few startups in the past, and her current startup is in and around supporting business owners that are looking to start e-commerce companies, especially if they're looking to understand supply chain and kind of setting it up all from abroad as well. So Irina, I'd love you to tell us a bit more about yourself, tell us a bit about, kind of your journey, what brought you to where you are today, and help our listeners understand kind of what motivates you as well.
All right. Thank you, Chen, for introducing me. And I have to correct you because the company is actually in customer experience. So we help e-commerce businesses make more money from existing customers without having to chase all the additional new conversions. So what actually the company is all about is we help e-commerce businesses provide the post-purchase experience. But this is not the first company, like you mentioned, and the first company was really, really an adventure. I would say that it wasn't even like, when you're starting a business, it's already an adventure because you never know what it's going to turn into. But we probably put it on the hard mode. So the first company that we started it in China, where we moved to without speaking Chinese, without knowing anything about the country or knowing anything about the business. And that's how we ended up with the first company that we were an intermediary that helped our e-commerce businesses source products from China. So we were like a sourcing agent. And it was one of the stupidest ideas we ever had, but it was an interesting experience. We were like on this brink of survival for the entire 2.5 years that we spent in China.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that it was at the end of the day, there's no such thing as a stupid mistake because you ended up learning a lot from that. And I'm guessing that a lot of that you're applying to both how you run TrackMage, but also to how you support your clients through TrackMage as well, right?
Yeah. The first learning was that the business shouldn't be tied to a physical location if you really want infinite scale, or at least if you want any freedom. Because what happened with the first business, we actually rented an apartment, we rented a warehouse, and we had to physically be there to run the business. And that was a major drawback because we actually wanted freedom. When we started traveling, we caught that idea of travel living, where you could literally just like a digital nomad, you could go to any country. But we kind of screwed up that idea majorly because the very first country we moved to, we stayed there for 2.5 years, and then we just created a business there with an offline facility and all that. So yeah, it was anything but freedom at that point.
I'm curious to hear kind of what you've taken away in terms of understanding how to work both with different cultures, but with also different language barriers, because you probably see that a lot of e-commerce businesses tend to source products from Asia nowadays, not only from China, but also now up and coming is Vietnam as well.
From Bangladesh as well, and I have seen some brands working with them.
Yeah. So kind of what have you learned about the first would be the culture aspect, and then second would be the language aspect.
Yeah. All right. So you want to go with that angle. So that would be. So when it comes to the language, we never actually understood or we never actually spoke the language. We use technology to communicate with the suppliers. I learned a very different version of English to make sure that the translation is correct. So, for example, something like "Do you have the goods?" Sounded in the automatic translation something like this: "You have goods, ah." That's exactly that's exactly the kind of English that I was speaking by the end of the adventure. Because I literally had to make sure that all the tools were translating it correctly. I think with the rise of AI and more sophisticated technologies right now, translation industry altogether might even die soon, where we will be able to just freely speak, and some kind of artificial intelligence is going to be able to interpret in real time and even mimic our own voice, which is the future, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. I can definitely see that as something that is possibly going to change how we do business internationally. Since you took the technological approach, like how did you verify what you were translated was actually accurate? Did you hire a translator? Do you have any local team members who speak Chinese?
No, we never reached that level. So what we had, we literally just communicated with the Chinese suppliers through like Weixin, which is WeChat, or other communication platforms. So we had to talk with suppliers through Taobao or 1688, which is Alibaba, Iliubaba in Chinese. And we had to translate all the messages back and forth. So what we did, just to make sure that the meaning was still there, we translated back and forth. Sometimes it was challenging to understand if the translation was matching or not. But still, that saved us from certain like surefire misunderstandings.
Yeah.
And the very moment we started learning Chinese, it was both helpful and unhelpful, because we were trying to speak Chinese ourselves, and it always sounded less sophisticated than what the translation typically was. But still, we had no trouble with communicating with suppliers because the specifications were not that hard to understand. So I need that many pieces of this specific product. These are the technical characteristics, and this is what we get in the end.
Yeah.
So it was pretty straightforward.
Interesting. And I almost wonder if, because you were communicating in Chinese, that there may have been less cultural issues that you would have to deal with, because they might have also otherwise assumed that you were also a Chinese-speaking person who's familiar with their culture.
Well, sort of. When you are on the platform, nobody knows that you're a cat, but that's true for all internet. So they never suspected that. Well, at least until they called us directly, where we had to answer the phone. But then we always just we had this decoy phrase that I'm just a person who's working in the warehouse, and I'm not familiar. I don't know what's going on. Please write to WeChat or please write to the other platform. Yeah,
interesting. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but I'm curious if it did. Did you run into any kind of situation where there were vendors that were misleading, who were trying to scam you or trying to do something that was unethical?
Well, all the time. That's why we existed in the first place. Because when it comes to making sure that the quality is good, you have to verify that the goods are matching the description, or that the goods are at least matching the photo that you've seen. We have seen all kinds of deviations from the photos, just not even the small ones. And since it was just an example, once we ordered the shoes that were supposed to say Valentino, but when we received the shoes with the label Vive Tilno. So yeah, that's the kind of issues that we were trying to prevent. In certain cases, when we were just working with some printed T-shirts, the print was backwards or mirrored. So we have seen it all, like the holes, backwards print, wrong spelling, I don't know, just poor quality of the tissue, like all the things. Specifically for the bags, for example, we needed to verify that the bags were genuine leather, not some PU, like that's how they were called in China, like just like for false leather.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that a lot of that can be mitigated by ordering samples or asking for small batches in upfront. Is that typically the only way to kind of deal with some of that quality control, or are there other ways or other kind of processes?
I would say that the suppliers, they are sneakier than that. So if you order one sample, typically you get the ideal sample. It's going to be ideal in every way. But if you order 10, they will have hard time to provide 10 ideal samples. That's why we usually started from small batches versus just ordering like one single sample.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Maybe I want to kind of hear a bit more about TrackMage as well. Not just the company that you did before. Can you tell us a bit more about kind of how you ended up starting TrackMage and also what you've learned in the process?
Yeah. Well, we started TrackMage because we had this previous company. So in the first place, we were trying to serve our former selves. The businesses that actually have the same problem with like keeping track of all the suppliers, making sure that the shipments are going out on time, making sure that all the customers are notified about the packages, and then just keeping track of all this post-purchase madness that happens. Because back in China, we had to deal with all that firsthand. And since we had a lot of time differences with our customers, we had to be online 24/7, which was not possible. And since the shipping time from China is typically from 2 weeks to 1 month or even longer than that, the customers were getting anxious, and sometimes they even placed refund requests on PayPal or other merchants, other merchant accounts that we used. And this caused us some trouble. Because on PayPal, even if there is no issue, but you receive too many refund requests, you can get restricted, or the rolling average can be increased. So to mitigate that, we had to notify customers before they even asked. We had to constantly keep communicating with everyone so that nobody develops an anxiety, and had to implement that as a system. Basically, that was the only step that we haven't automated in China. And I believe it was kind of like karmic debt that we wanted to fulfill when we implemented it in TrackMage.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And I really resonate with that approach because one of the things that I talk about in one of the previous episodes was in and around how expectation kind of forms a customer's experience. And basically with your tool now, instead of being reactive, where you're waiting for customers to complain or raise an issue, you are being proactive, and you're giving them that expectation of like, hey, here's your product, it's on the way, it's coming, it's, past the, let's say, sorry, what was it? Exports and duties or whatnot, but basically giving them full line of sight. And by doing so, you're avoiding some of that bad experiences, because now a customer knows what's happening and they don't feel like you're pulling a wool over their eyes.
Absolutely. It's all about being one step ahead of your customer. So you should notice all those problems before the customers actually notice those problems. And the typical example would be a drop shipping business. Where in a drop shipping business, let's say you order a t-shirt from a drop shipping supplier, and then they provide the tracking number. But the tracking number doesn't start tracking right away. You know that you send the customer the tracking number, but then 3 days pass, no tracking. 5 days pass, no tracking. That's a problem. So to mitigate that, in TrackMage, we have an option to switch on the tracking only when the actual tracking number shows the in-transit status, when it actually starts moving. This is to allow the dropshipping businesses to buy from a different supplier if there is a problem with the initial purchase. And that has proven to be very practical for those businesses. Also, we have the counters to show how many days the shipment hasn't moved. If there is a delay, or there is some kind of delay with even receiving the tracking information, there is always a possibility to go back to the platform where you purchased the goods in the first place. Typically, it's something like AliExpress, and where you can place the refund request. And then you can just buy from a different supplier before your customer even notices. Because what typically happens in those cases is that the customer waits for 2 weeks, there is no information whatsoever. Then they contact the dropshipping business, and the dropshipping business just notices after 2 weeks, they're like, oh my God, there was no tracking, there was no information. We should have bought from a different supplier, but the 2 weeks already passed. And
Mm.
just to make sure that your customers have a better experience, you can mitigate all those delays and you can proactively monitor all that and prevent those issues from ever happening.
Mm. Um, since you've been in and around e-commerce for such a long time, a lot of what we've been talking so much has been mostly in and around getting products to the hands of the customers.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what other common mistakes do you see that early kind of e-commerce entrepreneurs tend to make?
Well, the most typical mistake of every e-commerce entrepreneur is buying a lot of inventory before even verifying if the product is going to sell.
Mm.
That has been like the most problematic situation I have seen all around the world. I had one situation where we got contacted by a Canadian entrepreneur, and he wanted to start a business with selling wooden cutlery. Not even wooden, but like from bamboo. And he already bought all the inventory, and it was resting in a fulfillment center in the US, where he got charged for every day for restocking fees and like just the space that it was occupying.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't have any stable sales. He didn't have any inbound traffic to his store.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have any contracts with any of the distribution centers or any wholesalers. So he literally didn't have any sales.
Mm.
And then he already had all the inventory. He already did all the, let's say, the most complex part. So he found the supplier, he already ordered the goods, he already bought them, they were already there in US, but then he didn't have any means to sell it.
Mm.
And that inventory just became a dead weight that he just needed to sell somewhere, possibly at the same price he bought it. Because nobody was interested in the premium price that he was supposed to be charging.
Yeah.
And then, so he had to go above and beyond to just sell the product that he could have verified before ordering all that inventory.
Yeah.
If he just started from the sales or from negotiating the contracts with distributors or local wholesalers or even some retail chain stores, he would have been fine. But he did this only after he bought all this inventory and when he was locked in, and that inventory was actively eating his money because he had to pay the fulfillment center.
Yeah. I think that's actually what you mentioned is a fairly common problem that I've seen on my end as well, working with the entrepreneurs. And often when I raise this issue, the common pushback that I get is they're concerned that if they sell and if they don't have the product, then they're worried that they will lose the customers because the customers feel like, it's taking forever for me to get my product. Do you have any advice?
Well, there's plenty of other e-commerce models where you don't have to worry about selling the product that you don't have. So let's say we go to dropshipping model. You can just find the suppliers that are going to be willing to ship the products for you. Like the only complex part about finding good suppliers is just verifying that the quality is good and that your customers are going to be happy receiving those products. So it's not like you're going to be going into this blindly. And the only exception would be your own private label, because you cannot sell something with your logo unless it's a customizable product in the first place where you can just provide the logo and they're going to print it for you. That's called print on demand. So if you have some specific design that you want to sell, you literally can employ some of those print on demand companies, and you will be able to sell the t-shirts or the hats or cups that don't exist. And they will only be printed if a customer buys, which is very cost effective. And then there are models where you don't even have to start producing the product until you understand that there are a lot of customers that want that product. This is Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaigns where you literally just come up with the idea of a product, you advertise it, and then you get a significant amount of pre-orders. And only then, after you have all that, like all the money that you collected from the campaign, you actually start to produce the products.
Yeah.
So all of those models where you don't risk upfront with your money invested into production of a specific product, they are way better than starting from just buying inventory and then starting to figure out how to sell it.
Great points. And I'm just going to repeat them just to make sure that the listeners can kind of hear the main ideas there. So number one is using drop shipping, where you don't have to worry about providing the product directly. Number two is looking at print on demand, where you can, instead of printing in batch or in bulk, you can only print when the order comes through. And then the third one that you mentioned was leveraging pre-orders through platforms like Kickstarters or Indiegogo. Yeah, all great ideas.
Crowdfunding campaigns, yeah.
I'm curious, like, besides the inventory management and sales side of things, what else are common mistakes that people make when they go into an e-commerce business?
Not understanding where customers would be one of them, because I understand that most of the e-commerce businesses that they are started out of wrong intentions. So there is some kind of dread on, like, at work, or the future e-commerce entrepreneur, they have some spare money. And then they just buy a course how to start an e-commerce business. And what happens next is they're just going to go to Amazon and look which products are selling well. And they will start this never-ending hunt, like after the winning product. It's almost like that never-ending hunt for the white whale. Because the winning product, like, yeah, that's great. You find your winning product, but then what? You will be selling just this mono product. You might create a funnel. You might create a lot of things that are based on that product. But in the end, you are still left with this specific product. It's much better to start with a specific niche or with a community or some kind of interest that you can capitalize on. Let's say you can find a community of cat lovers. You can have 170 products just out of the gate to sell to them, starting from merchandise that's featuring cats to some cat products or some educational materials on how to treat your cat, or even collectibles where you can sell them cartoon characters that are resembling cats. So like the possibilities are endless, and you can even bundle products and create something unique out of already available pieces. So let's say it's a soap shaped as a cat paw, plus a t-shirt, and then some mittens. And and all that with your own branding, sold from your store. And later on, this kit can be shipped from 3 different suppliers, and the customer is not going to mind. They are not expecting to receive it all in one box. But still, the customer is going to get it, even if separately. That's the beauty of advertising, and how you can present the product and create value out of thin air, where you just combine the 2 offers or 3 offers into one bundle, and the customer is already tempted to buy it.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting that you mentioned that, because it makes me think of 2 things. So one is the one where you say to kind of avoid, where I've actually had family members where I actually seen them go down that white whale hunting route, where they are always looking for, like, what is the next best product to sell? Because as you know, with a lot of e-commerce products, a lot of it is trendy. And once it goes out of trend, then they need to find the next best hot selling product. And little do they realize that whatever is a hot seller is probably a very competitive space where a lot of other people are also selling the same product as well. So sure, they can profit by capturing a part of that large market, but at the end of the day, they're chasing shiny object to shiny object. And I think if anything, it's more damaging to their brand on the long term, because then people look at their company and they don't understand what this company is selling, because this company is selling all kinds of stuff that is just a hot stuff.
Yes, it's just a short-lived model where you're just testing the demand, and that brand that you develop for the dropshipping business, where you're just selling various products to find the winners, that brand is probably going to be a throwaway brand.
Yep.
Because once you find the actual product that you want to sell or the market that you want to service, you will have to focus and you will have to develop a very solid brand for that specific category. So let's say you find a winning product that is going to be in jewelry. You will have to start a jewelry brand in that case.
Yes. And to kind of talk about the other example that I think of is I have another friend who has taken the community approach that you mentioned, where he's built up this community, and not to say that it's easy to build a community. He's built out a community of about 10 million followers, and it's taken him a lot of time. It's taken him close to 7 years to do that. But what he sees now is very similar to what you're talking about, that let's say cat lover kind of community. Anytime he launches any product into his community, it pretty much sells up. And he doesn't have to worry about like what the product is, because he already has the audience to sell to. So he doesn't have to worry about chasing sales. He just has to think about what does the community want, and then from there go and source the product that the community is interested in, and then naturally there is demand. So yeah, I like that you mentioned those.
That reminds me, that reminds me of our wrong assumption with which we went to China, because we thought that the suppliers are the most important part of business. So if we can find the best products or the cheaper products, or I guess like discounted iPhone, because that's the manufacturing country. We never found those because they don't exist, by the way. So the thing is, we thought that the suppliers are the key part of a business. Unfortunately, that's not true. The key part of a business are customers and sales, because those are the lifeblood of the business. And the customers' experience and their reviews, they can also matter a lot in the business. That's why that was also one of those takeaways from the first business, because every time something went wrong, not because it was our fault, we did everything perfectly, but the supplier sent the wrong product, or the shipping company didn't deliver the product, or we had some kind of disruption in communication. So like again, it was always us in the end who were damaged from this long chain of our people in the business. We could control only our behavior or what we did as a service, but then the customers, they suffered from like wrong expectations, or the suppliers not supplying exactly what they were supposed to, and all our stuff that we had no control over. Just an example would be, for example, we had a customer who bought a batch of hookahs, and the electric hookahs, and we didn't have any means to test if those electric hookahs were high quality. What should we have done? Should we have smoked every one of them? Like it would have damaged the product. So we had to ship it as is. We did turn them on. We saw the light that those were functioning, but then those hookahs actually reached the country of destination, and the customer started selling them. That's when the problem started happening. Those were faulty, and they even blew up once.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was very damaging, because we did everything perfectly. We did buy the goods, we did check them, we did package them correctly, like nothing was broken during transportation. So everything would have been perfect, like just with this minor but the product was not good. And the customer couldn't even blame us, because he selected the supplier. We just helped him buy the goods. So then again, that customer wasn't happy, and it wasn't a lifelong relationship between us and his business, just because of this one supplier. And at some point I just said, like, I don't want to risk my reputation just because of those suppliers that we have to work with, because we cannot guarantee that they're good ones. That's it.
I'm curious to get your take on the topic of competition and kind of copycats in the market, because I think especially in e-commerce, especially product companies, this tends to be more prevalent than more so with tech. So what are some tips or advice that you can give to people who are worried about competitors either copying their products or moving into their space or carrying similar products?
Well, I guess that would be I have a very different understanding of competition. So the competition is there to verify that the market actually exists. If other people sell similar products and they have great sales and you are selling very similar product, you have the ability to get all those sales as well. It's just market validation. What it comes down to is how do you attract those customers? How do you build the community, or how do you stand out on this marketplace? Because there is always some kind of angle that you can introduce or some kind of partnership that you can get into where you will sell that product, no questions asked. Because it's not about selling something unique. Whenever the company is trying to sell something unique or innovate, they are going to face a very different challenge. They will have to persuade the market that the market actually needs that thing. And it's a totally different game where you have to create the demand, not just answer some kind of need or the existing need in the marketplace. So I would say if you have a lot of competition or you see that there are a lot of businesses that are selling similar products, congratulations, there is a lot of money to be made because that niche is verified. There is a lot of demand. If all those people were selling that product, probably there's a lot of demand. And coming back to our previous points, it could be a seasonal demand. So something like Christmas trees, they are not going to sell after Christmas until the next Christmas. So watch out for those kind of products or those kind of sales that you could be making. But other than that, if you are just verifying a niche and understanding if the demand is there, you have absolutely, like, you have all the chances in the world.
Yeah, no, thanks for saying that. I think it needs to be talked about more often. And I really like your viewpoint of competition being healthy and also embracing competition and not being afraid of it. I think the reason why so many people are kind of put too much emphasis on competition is because, especially in the tech world, that there is that push to be different, to be innovative, to be new. But like you say, at the end of the day, if there are competitors, which I think at the end of the day, in every market, let's face it, even if you're in tech, you will have competitors. And that is a good thing. And
I can have like a very good example of that being true for even that competitive niche of cold email sending. Lemlist, when they started that company, the number of autoresponders on the marketplace, it was already over 100. Like, how can you innovate in a space of cold email sending? But they did start that company, and right now it's a $100 million business. And they did bootstrap it from the ground. So it's absolutely possible to make money in those niches where it's considered mainstream. Even if you just sell, I don't know, almond milk, or you're selling some T-shirts. Because again, it's not about the T-shirts anymore. It's about what is printed on those T-shirts. It's about the kind of message that you tie to those T-shirts. And like, again, the customers, if they bought some other T-shirt, there is a possibility they're going to buy your T-shirt as well. It's not like once you bought one T-shirt, you no longer need any T-shirts. That never happens, right?
I'm going to try to pick out a few things that happen in this conversation that I think help people understand how to view competition and what to focus on instead. So you mentioned a few of those. So one is the community aspect. So instead of worrying about competition, focus on building your community, because I think twofold on community. So one is when you build a community, it's difficult for your competitor to sell into your community because those are the people who are really loyal to your cause, who have already formed relationships within your community. So naturally, they will want to buy your product because they trust you rather than buying a competitor's product as well. Another one that you mentioned that was interesting as well is in and around kind of the brand and the trust associated with that. Because people will start to know you for selling these type of products, when you start to focus on that direction, then it becomes a lot easier for you to continue to sell whatever products, even if other people are starting to sell it, because they already know that you have established a reputation of quality, established a reputation of what this brand means to them. So a lot of people, when they buy into brands, they think like, what does the brand help me represent in terms of my own identity as well? So those are two things to kind of focus a bit more on. And I think one thing that you mentioned that was interesting as well is having like you talked about bundling, and I think a lot of people don't think about bundling this way, but the more complementary products you have to your main product, the more you integrate your product with your customer's lifestyle. And therefore, it becomes also harder for a competitor to come into the space, because if someone is, let's say, using like a special toothbrush that goes very well with a specific type of toothbrush holder, then if they change the toothbrush, they also have to change the toothbrush holder as well. So they don't want to do that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and also another example would be the reframing that I read about in Made to Stick. I think that was that book, either Made to Stick or like Contagious, like one of those books. So they identified this example. There was a business owner who sold boats. And he had a hard time imagining what kind of content he could be posting about his business, or what kind of book he could be writing about the business. But then the consultant who actually wrote the book helped him reframe that to, I don't sell boats, I am in the business of owning a boat. And that totally changed his business. Because then he started introducing all kinds of lifestyle products, like, okay, the clothes that you could be wearing, how do you treat that boat, or how do you even like the ideas about vacations that you can go on a boat, or like the fishing supplies, like all those things that are going with a boat. And in the end, he even wrote a book. Called Honey, Let's Buy a Boat. Okay, and I remember from which book it actually was. Like the two books that I mentioned, they are extremely good, but it's not the book that I got this idea from. The book was actually called Key Person of Influence. I couldn't recommend that one enough. It's really good, solid instruction how to become a key person of influence in your niche, and then just like based on that authority, you make a lot of sales.
Yeah, no, very interesting example, and I can definitely resonate with that, because I myself I have a boat, and exactly like you say, like it's an inflatable boat, but generally it's that mindset of like, it's not that I bought a boat because I just want the boat itself as a utility, but it's because I want the lifestyle that's associated with having a boat. I want to be able to travel to places that no one else can travel to unless they have a boat, right? Yeah. Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's an opportunity. So even if you are selling some kind of winning product, then think about what can you bundle that product with. And that's how you will grow that brand around the specific need that this one is fulfilling.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to just throw in another kind of random idea or topic or observation. So, because I think it's related to e-commerce, and it's kind of interesting for the listeners if they're considering products to carry. So I worked in the past with an entrepreneur, and what was very interesting with what they did with their products is they took on a collector's approach. So if you're familiar with the jewelry brand Pandora, you know that they have different kind of, both with seasons, but also different series that they come up with, like let's say a Disney series, or they have a series with, like, let's say Marvel characters or something like that. And what was very interesting with his product is he was, it's a very, very, very simple product, but it's catered in and around people who travel. And obviously, you know, with travel, travel is an infrequent purchase. People travel maybe twice a year kind of thing. So what I often see with a lot of physical products, not only with travel, is that a lot of e-commerce companies tend to fall into the challenge of having one-time customers with low lifetime value. That means the customer comes to you, purchases a product once, and never buys from you again. So he said, okay, how do I deal with that? And he ended up launching a series where you can buy a bracelet, and the bracelet is the main product, but there are add-ons to that bracelet that show which country that you visited. And every time you travel or visit a new country, you can buy this new ring to add onto the bracelet. And it kind of like shows all of different places that you've been in. It's a collector's thing. And there are certain ones that are like limited edition as well. And that actually really boosted his sales a lot. Yeah. So just wanted to put it out. Yeah. So think about how you can do that with your own products too. Sorry, you go ahead.
That's really cool because that's what launched the entire new facet of e-commerce industry. Whereas this interesting model called subscription box. There are a lot of platforms that actually help with that right now, but previously it was just Birchbox. They were gathering certain cosmetic samples and sending them to the customers on subscription basis every month. And that's also how you can create the subscription model in an e-commerce business, because people don't need stuff, let's say, or they will have trouble choosing. But if you send them mystery boxes every month, they might even go for that. And there are subscription boxes, I think, for everything right now. So for baby products, for pet products, for cosmetics, obviously. But then there are always ideas that can be introduced even in the traditional businesses. So if you already have an established e-commerce business, you could be selling your excess inventory as a mystery box. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, interesting. No, I think thanks so much for taking your time. There were a lot of interesting ideas in this episode. I'm curious, if people want to find out or learn more about yourself or TrackMage, what's the best way for them to learn more?
The best way would be to go to trackmage.com. That's our website, and where you will find all the information about the tool, and you can even install it on Shopify or WooCommerce stores if you have them. And then you can find me personally on LinkedIn. This is my platform of preference, because I'm not on all the platforms, but this one is where I enjoy being. You will find my surname properly spelled in the show notes, I believe. But I will say, like, my name is Irina Podubna, and the tool is trackmage.com.
Great. Thank you again, Irina. Thanks for your time. Any final words before we end?
Just dare to do whatever you want, because I think like when we first started, we just went to China and we didn't think it through. But still, it worked out in the end. We ended up with a lot of experience and a lot of memories that are unforgettable. And even if your first startup turns out to be a fuck up, this is going to still work out in the end. Somehow it's going to work out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's never really a failure unless you don't learn anything from it. So obviously, with every experience that we get, we learn something from it. So no fuck up is really a pandemonium failure for any business. Great. Thanks again for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.